My name is Roy Matthew. I'm the Chief Business Officer for M1 Exchange. M1 Exchange is a RBI licensed platform for extending trades in India. Before I go on to the platform, thanks to ET for the opportunity to represent on trades to all the budding entrepreneurs. Trades is a game changer. Trades is a paradigm shift from the way financing is usually done by the MSME sector. This is the one down. Yeah. So before I introduce you to Trades. Trades is, as I was mentioning, is a digital platform. It's a platform where MSME vendors can get their receivables discounted in a very seamless and digital manner. Before we get into more depth into what is Trades, I'll just probably run you through a 60-second video which is released by Reserve Bank of India. Can you play that?
जी जी लास्ट ऑर्डर की पेमेंट अभी तक की हेलो हेलो हेलो
नेटवर्क क्षेत्र से बाहर है।
ऐसे ही चलता रहा तो मैं बिजनेस से बाहर हो जाऊंगी।
इतनी परेशान क्यों लग रही है?
एक बड़ा ऑर्डर आया है और पिछले डिलीवरी का पैसा कुछ महीनों से अटका पड़ा है।
तो जमाने के साथ चलना सीखना। ट्रेड्स में रजिस्टर कर।
ट्रेड्स ये क्या है?
ट्रेड्स लघु उद्योगों को पेमेंट की परेशानी से बचाने के लिए बनाया गया है। माल सप्लाई करने के बाद खरीदार द्वारा स्वीकृत इनवॉइस को ट्रेड्स की वेबसाइट पर अपलोड कर दो। बैंक इनवॉइस का पेमेंट आपको तुरंत दे सकता है, पर बेचने वाला और खरीदने वाला सरकारी हो या प्राइवेट, दोनों ट्रेड्स पर रजिस्टर्ड होने चाहिए।
सॉरी, कॉल कट गया था।
एक बात बताइए, आप ट्रेड्स पे रजिस्टर्ड हो?
हाँ, आप भी रजिस्टर कर लो।
जी, और इनवॉइस भी करती हूँ अपलोड, और अब से पेमेंट की नहीं लूंगी लोड।
आरबीआई कहता है, बनो जानकार, बढ़ाओ व्यापार।
So that was a quick snapshot of what Trades is, what Trades aims to achieve. Trades aims to achieve a mechanism through which a MSME can get its bills or its receivables discounted on the platform. As I was also mentioning to you, M1 Exchange is a RBI licensed platform. So this whole concept of Trades was conceptualized by RBI, and then they asked players like M1 to roll it out. So we are one of the platforms which extends trades in India. So essentially there are three key players on the platform. There is the MSME supplier, there is the large buyer, and then there are a set of financiers. So it's a many-to-many platform. The set of financiers are already with us. We have about 55 financiers on the back end. We have a large number of buyers also registered on the platform. But as the video was mentioning, it is important that both the seller and the buyer have to be registered on the platform. Only then the system can work, because it's an online digital platform where the vendor uploads the invoice and the buyer approves the invoice. And only after this process is completed will the financiers bid for the invoices. And as we go through, I'll tell you in detail as to how there is also a price discovery and why this whole mechanism becomes very cost effective for both the buyer as well as the seller. So three key stakeholders on the platform. There is a MSME seller who is supplying goods. It's a very good mechanism for them to get their receivables. There's no collateral, there's no security, there's not even a new account to be opened. Your existing account can continue. So there is no administrative hassles. You will continue with your existing account. So super duper scheme for the vendor or the supplier of goods or services, except that he or she has to, it is a post-shipment, post-acceptance platform. Like Mr. Rao was saying on the NSIC, saying that there are a lot of schemes for MSMEs to get their raw material, etc. So this platform comes into play post your shipment. That is, if you have supplied the goods or services, it starts post that. It doesn't happen before that. So that is a benefit to the suppliers. Then there is a host of benefits to the buyers of the goods, because they also are able to manage their vendors better. They can manage their working capital better. For the financiers, this is also very useful because if there are any bankers here, they will know that there's something called a priority sector lending, which every bank has to attain. So anything that gets booked on this platform qualifies for a priority sector benefit. So that is the other reason. Now, more importantly, the government of India, by the notification of November 2018, enabled this whole program by saying that it is mandatory for every corporate, which is more than 500 crores, to register on this platform. So this is how the whole platform works. Now, what is the typical challenge that an MSME vendor sees, right? Does he give more credit option with an elongated credit period? And on the other hand, he wants to realize his financials fast, his receivables fast. So if you want to extend your tenor, if you want to give a longer payable period for the buyer, but at the same time want to get your money received fast, then trades could be your ideal solution, right? You extend a 180-day credit, for example. That doesn't apply to micro and small. It applies to only medium. You want to extend a tenor of 180 days and get your bills discounted on the platform by, say, getting it on the 15th day. So this product will enable you to do that. Now, a quick overview of M1 Exchange. M1 Exchange is, as I mentioned to you, RBI licensed platform. We are one of the first platforms to get the license. We have about 18,000 odd SME vendors, about 1,200 from the state of Telangana itself. We have about 1,200 large corporates. When I say large corporates, they are the type of, say, an Aurobindo Limited or a Dr. Reddy Labs equivalent, the large corporates. And we have about 55 banks registered with us. We would have completed about 55,000 crores cumulative till date of discounting. That means we would have enabled 55,000 crores of discounting to have done on the platform. And so many vendors or so many MSME vendors would have benefited from this program. Just to give you a snapshot of how well the platform is now being accepted. When we started off in 18, we had about 300 crores annually. And last year, we would have done about 25,000 crores. So the acceptance of the platform and the benefit to the vendors are so much that it is now getting more and more acceptance. The same goes for the number of corporates registered, the number of MSMEs registered, and the number of financiers registered. These are some of the core principles of the thing, of the exchange, where we say that we do a complete end-to-end solution. We do a KYC AML of the participants. We also have link-ins to GST, and that's work in progress. We have duplicate checks to ensure there are no duplicate invoices getting financed. We also ended up with a complete end-to-end integration with the corporate so that there is no manual handoffs. The next question would be whether this is applicable only to the large corporates in tier 1 cities. Well, the answer is no. Of the 18,000 MSMEs that are registered on a platform, a large number of them are from tier 2, tier 3 cities. They are not from major cities, they are from tier 2, tier 3 cities. And 76% of the financing that we have done, of the 55,000 crores that I mentioned, 76% is done for micro and small. Now, what is the ease of use when it comes to M1? The vendor onboarding, that is when, as a vendor, as a supplier of goods, when you want to register, it's a completely digital process, end to end. There is no physical couriering of documents, etc. You do everything online through a mobile app. You can engage with the sales team, which is in vernacular language, and it's a bank agnostic platform. There is no specific bank available here. All the banks are equal. And when I go through the process flow or the workflow, you'll realize that all banks can equally participate. Now, this is a very powerful slide. What we say is the impact that the platform has created for the MSME sector. Now, typically, there are two key things that we have done. One is to give the confidence to the vendor to do more business. Usually, a vendor, after supplying a certain goods, would have to then wait because he does not want to know how much more can he bill, right? He can bill only to a certain extent. Whereas we are saying you bill and immediately get it discounted. So then your counterparty risk is very limited. Your counterparty risk is so limited. And also, by virtue of this, the entire velocity of money is much faster, right? What you would have realized in 45 days, you may realize in 15 days. So then you can do the next supply and then again get it discounted. So your velocity of money is much faster. And how is this achieved, right? In a conventional SME financing way, like we heard a lot of people say that, bankers are people who supply, who pull out the umbrella when the need is there. In an MSME, in this whole platform, what happens is the risk is moved from the SME supplier to the large buyer, right? The risk now resides with the large buyer. You have supplied the goods to the large buyer, and from there on, the payment risk is from the large buyer. The banks will not follow up with you. The banks will follow up with the large buyer for repayment. They will not follow up with you. So that is the paradigm shift that has happened, and that brings in more efficiencies. And because the shift of the risk is to the large buyer, the interest rate is also much better. So for example, if anybody of you are supplying to MRF Limited in Chennai, and MRF accepts the invoice on the platform, then the discounting can happen at a very fine rate, because MRF is very well rated. It is a AA rated company, right? So it will be, the financiers will be able to bid very aggressively on that platform. So you will get a rate which is equivalent to what MRF will get. So that is the advantage that this platform brings it to you. At the same time, as I mentioned, the ease of use. There are no administrative hassles. There is no asking of 2 years projections, last 2 years projections, next 2 years, last 2 years performance, next 2 years projection, etc. It's a very seamless thing where only your KYC is done. And your current account, your existing banker details are obtained. That's about it. Just reiterating that it's a complete digital ecosystem from the onboarding, whether it's the legal framework that we are talking of, or the banking side where the data flow into the banking. It's all digital. The integration with the client backend, the email alerts, everything is digitalized. We have mentioned this in brief, but I'm just reiterating this in terms of what is the advantage for a supplier. I would assume most of you are suppliers, and this is the advantages for you. This program enables to release your existing working capital. You may be borrowing at 12-13%. You can get the discounting happening on the platform and get the money and square off your working capital. Therefore, the lower cost of financing. As I mentioned earlier, if your buyer is a very well-rated company, for example, you're supplying to a BDL or you're supplying to a BEL, the discounting of BEL invoices will happen at, say, 7%, right? Or you're supplying to HPCL or an IOCL, the discounting of those will happen at a very competitive rate. So those competitive rates will come transfer to you. And all this is, as I mentioned, collateral-free, no security, no documentation from your end, except a KYC. Just a one-time KYC that you do, and then you're done. These are some of the advantages to the corporate. Essentially, the corporate can also manage their vendors better. They are able to reduce their overall procurement cost. Why does the overall procurement cost come down? Because in a conventional manner, if the buyer and seller were to be engaging in a trade, and there is a credit period, that credit period will have a cost, right? It will have a cost either at 12%, 13%, whatever is the cost that the supplier has with his bank. Now, if I am able to crunch that cost to 7%, then there is obviously a reduction in cost by about 5-6%. This is just some of our large corporates registered on a platform who enable this trade, right? So in the pharma space, for example, from Telangana, we would have names like Newland Laboratories, Honor Labs. Then in the other space, you'll have energy, Premier Photovoltaic. These are some of the other names in the which are registered with us. Now, one particular name, I would draw your attention to one particular name here called Eastern Condiments. Eastern Condiments is a masala manufacturing company, right? They buy chili from Guntur, where the chili produce happens. And in an earlier scenario, before TREDS was introduced, these guys would buy chili, and then there was a hundi raised on Eastern, which was in Alve, Kochi, and the documents had to travel physically, right? From Guntur to Alve, get accepted, then go back and get discounted. And all this would take about 15 days. And the discounting would be happening by then Andhra Bank, now Union Bank, at almost at 12.5%, right? Now, all the vendors of Eastern are on the platform. All they do is log on to the platform, upload the invoices. Eastern sitting in Kochi will approve the invoices. Union Bank sitting in Mangalore will bid for the invoices. So all this happens in a span of 2 days' time as compared to the 15 days earlier. And it's all completely digital and at a rate which the vendor is finding it difficult to believe it. He gets it at 8%, which earlier he used to pay at 12.5% for a discounting. These are some of the large PSUs that are registered on a platform. So if any of you are supplying to any of these PSUs, you can get your bills discounted. HAL, BHEL. These are the 55 odd banks that I mentioned are already tied up with M1 Exchange at the back end. This is as per RBI guidelines again. RBI had said that it will be only scheduled banks that can participate. RBI has now opened the window for NBFCs also to participate. So currently, we have not listed the name of the NBFC. It's only 2 NBFCs, which is SBI Global Factors and CanBank Factors, which is listed. But now RBI has opened it to other NBFCs also. So Tata Capital has joined us. Chola is about to join us. So there are NBFCs who are also now participating in this whole thing. Now, how does this whole thing work? So now we broadly understood that Trades is a very good platform. You can get your money discounted from your usual credit paid days of 45 days. You can crunch it to 10 days, 5 days, 15 days, as much as practically possible. As much as all the due diligence is done at the client end, right? GRN, quality check, or whatever is the checks and balances that a buyer builds in. Now, this we have already discussed, saying that it provides you liquidity, it gives you the financial strength, and also more importantly, you don't have to follow up for collection anymore, right? Once you get your money from this platform, you are off the transaction. It is without recourse to you. That means whatever money you have, if this invoice is financed and you have got your money, you are out of it. If the buyer does not pay, it is between the buyer and the financer. So you are completely out of it. Now, a little more detailing on terms of how it works, right? So here is the supplier. The supplier uploads the invoice in a URL in the website of the of M1 Exchange. He uploads the invoice. He can support it with invoice details as well. There is a blockchain to ensure that there is no duplicate invoices. The moment this goes, the buyer gets an alert saying supplier ABC has uploaded a bill for you worth 10 lakhs or 15 lakhs. The buyer can check that the invoice details are correct. If, as per his system, all the GRN, all the checks and balances are completed, he has an option to approve it. Or if it is not corrected, if he feels that there is some discrepancy, he can send it back to you. He can say, no, sorry, amount is not correct, or say, sorry, bill is not yet ready. So once the buyer approves, then it will go to the financer. Now, what does the financer see? Supplier ABC, buyer, let's say ECIL Corporation, bill value 50 lakh rupees, tenor of say 30 days. So now there are say 10 financiers available, 5 financiers available who wants to take this risk. So now financer, let's assume State Bank of India comes and says, I am okay to bill discount this at 8%. Another financer will come and say, no, I can do it at 7.5%. A third financer can come and say, I will do it at 6.9%. So there is a bidding process that happens on each and every invoice. There's a bidding process that happens so that the actual pricing gets discovered. So it is not about any particular vendor or buyer. It, of course, depends on the credit rating of the buyer. So the better is the credit rating of the buyer, the better the price that comes on the platform. So example, as I told you, if it is a Indian Oil Corporation or a BPCL or a HPCL or any entity with a sovereign rating, then you will get a very fine rate of say even up to 6.2% on the platform. This is after the repo rate hikes. Before the repo rate hikes, it was even 3.9% at one point. So somebody who is manufacturing a cylinder, for example, and supplying to HPCL or BPCL would get it discounted at 3.9% on the platform. So that's how the financer will place the bill. the supplier can accept the invoice, the rate, whatever is the rate. Obviously, the supplier will accept L1. He will not accept L2, L3. He'll accept the lowest rate. Post which, so all this happens in T1. From morning 9 a.m. to, let's say, 9 p.m. All this happens. Supplier will upload the invoice, buyer will approve it, financer will place the bid, supplier will accept the rate. So all this happens from 9 to 9. And the next day morning, the vendor money gets credited, vendor's account gets credited. So it all happens in T+1 basis. So the settlement file is something that the platform, that is we generate, and we generate a settlement file and send it to NPCI. NPCI, as many of you know, what is the wholly owned subsidiary of RBI, who does all the electronic settlements, right? So they execute the settlement and they make the payment to the vendor's account. So there are two legs to the whole settlement. Leg 1, debit the financer, pay the vendor. And leg 2, debit the buyer and pay the financer. And all this is automated. It is called through a mechanism called NACH. Earlier it was called ECS, now it is called NACH, the National Automated Clearinghouse Mechanism, run by NPCI. So this is how the whole cycle gets worked. A small variant to this is where we say that the buyer can upload the invoice. So buyer can decide that I will extend this to all my vendors, and then he can upload the invoice, and it can happen through a host-to-host or through a API integration or through any SFTP mechanism that you want. It can happen through that, and then the same cycle continues. The bid happens, the settlement happens, and so on. So this is broadly how the whole the workflow happens on both the sides. Just as an example, so that you will understand this better. Let's assume there's a 10 lakh rupees invoice. The buyer has approved 10 lakhs. There is a possibility that he approves 9,90,000 also. So whatever is the amount approved, here as an example I've taken that he's approving all the 10 lakh rupees. The payment term is 45 days, but by 5th day he's cleared your goods. That is, he has done the GRN, he has done all the due diligence. Let's assume the discounting rate is 7%, then 7% can translate to 7,671 rupees. I collect 0.5%, I have also to survive. So I collect 0.5%, so the total charges will come to about 8,318. And the vendor gets 9,91,682 rupees for an invoice of a 10 lakh invoice paid 30 days in advance, right? Or no, 40 days in advance, paid 40 days. So 40 days in advance, you get 9,91,000. This is just as an example how it works. Just a graph of how the interest rates varies between depending on the rating of your buyer. This is very important because if you are supplying to a BBB minus sort of rating buyer, then your rates will also be very high. If you are supplying to a AA rated or a AAA rated company, then your rates will be lower. So the blue line indicates the AAA rated buyer, which will be a IOCL or a BPCL or one of the better managed companies. The yellow line indicates the BBB sort of BBB and below. So the better company you supply to, the better will be your interest rate. So that's broadly what we have. So we have a whole host of list of all private sector, public sector units. And now we are also going to the government sector. So we had a MOU signed with the Tamil Nadu government, where we are saying that we will even finance what the government is procuring. Apart from the state PSUs, there is also state PSUs, plus the government, state government bodies procuring, right? Like the Public Works Department or any of those departments that are procuring. And the example so we have tie-ups with, say, Madhya Pradesh government, we have tie-up with Tamil Nadu government, Madhya Pradesh government, Goa government, where we are sort of enabling their entire MSME sourcing. Like sir was saying earlier that there is a outflow or a amount earmarked for the MSMEs. Here you don't have to do all that. You don't have to earmark. You don't have to have a budgetary allocation at all. You can just enable the entire discounting for them. This is just some of the awards. I'll pause there. If there are any questions, I'll take that. Otherwise.